Everything you've been told about needing a garden is wrong. You don't need a yard. You don't need a raised bed. You don't even need a porch. What you need is 2 square feet, and I'm going to show you 10 edible plants that will fill your kitchen with fresh food from a space smaller than a welcome mat. Number 7 on this list, it's going to completely change how you think about buying herbs. And stick around till the end, because the bonus tip I'm saving is the single thing that doubled my harvest without spending a single extra dollar. Let's get into it. If you're new here, subscribe right now. This channel is all about growing real food on a real budget, no matter how tiny your space is. We figure it out together. Now, let's talk about plants that actually earn their square footage.
Before we get started, be sure to check out the plants, tools, and products featured in this video. Everything you need is linked right in the description below.
Number 10. Cherry tomatoes. Okay. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about tomatoes and small spaces. Big tomatoes need big space. But cherry tomatoes? Whole different story. Most people assume tomatoes are a space hog, but a single container plant can produce dozens of fruits all season long. The variety you want is Tumbling Tom Red. It's a trailing type, which means it actually works better in a hanging basket or the edge of a container than it does in a wide garden bed. It spills downward instead of sprawling outward, taking up 0 horizontal footprint. Here's a little-known trick. Pinch off every sucker that forms in the first 3 weeks. It feels wrong, but it trains the plant to push energy into fewer, bigger clusters of fruit. One Tumbling Tom plant will produce roughly 3 to 4 pounds of cherry tomatoes per season in a 12-inch pot. At the grocery store, cherry tomatoes run about $4 per pint. That's roughly 2 pounds of tomatoes in a small clamshell. Over a season, you're looking at $12 to $15 in cherry tomatoes from a pot that cost you $5 of soil. That's a 3-to-1 return minimum. And listen, the moment you bite into a cherry tomato that's still warm from the sun, there's nothing like that in a grocery store. Not even close. Number 9. Basil. Here's something that's going to sound crazy but is absolutely true. Basil is one of the highest value plants per square inch you can possibly grow. A single 4-inch pot of basil at the grocery store sells for $3 to $4, and it's half dead when you buy it. Why? Because grocery store basil is grown fast and sold stressed. Your basil, grown in your space, will outlive store-bought by months. The variety to reach for is Genovese basil. It's the classic, large-leafed Italian type with that deep, sweet, slightly peppery flavor. One plant in an 8-inch container, kept trimmed so it doesn't bolt, can produce up to a pound of fresh basil leaves across a growing season. Fresh basil at the grocery store can cost $6 to $8 per ounce at specialty stores. Even at the most conservative estimate, a single basil plant saves you $40 to $60 a year. One plant, under a square foot. The unusual tip here: pinch basil from the very top every single time you harvest. Never cut from the bottom. This keeps the plant bushy and delays flowering, which is when basil gets bitter and stops producing. The smell when you pinch it? That's dopamine. That's free. Number 8. Green onions, scallions. This one shocks people every time. So, green onions are basically immortal if you know what you're doing. Most gardeners treat them as a one-and-done crop. You grow them, you harvest them, they're gone. But here's what nobody tells you. Cut them an inch above the soil, leave the roots in the pot, water them, and they come back. Repeatedly. The variety is Evergreen Hardy White. It's cold-tolerant, prolific, and will regrow faster than almost anything else in a container. A 6-inch pot fits 8 to 10 scallions comfortably. One cut, wait 10 days, cut again. You can get 4 to 6 harvests per season from the same roots before they need replacing. A bunch of green onions at the grocery store runs about $1.50 to $2. From one pot, you can realistically harvest the equivalent of 8 to 10 bunches across a season. That's $12 to $18 from a container that fits on a windowsill. The sensory payoff with green onions is real. There's a sharpness and a freshness to a homegrown scallion that grocery store ones just don't have. The difference will surprise you. Number 7. Mint. Stop buying mint. I'm serious. This is the one that's going to completely change your grocery habits. Fresh mint at the store is wildly overpriced for what you get. A sad little plastic container with 6 stems for $3. And it wilts in 2 days. A single mint plant in a container? That's years of mint. Years. The variety is spearmint, specifically a cultivar called Kentucky Colonel. It's vigorous, fragrant, and doesn't turn bitter in heat the way peppermint can. Trades, one 10-inch container of mint will produce more fresh leaves than most people can use. Important tip: grow mint in its own container, always. Never plant it with other herbs. Mint is a colonizer. It will take over every bit of root space it can find. Contained in its own pot, it's peaceful, companionable, generous. A 4-ounce package of fresh mint at the grocery store can cost $3 to $4 and lasts maybe 4 days. A mint plant produces continuously from spring through fall, easily yielding 2 to 3 pounds of fresh leaves. That's conservatively $30 to $40 in fresh mint from a plant that costs $2 to start. Drop a stem in water, wait a week, you'll have roots. You can propagate it for free indefinitely. The smell alone is worth it. Mint is joy in a pot. Number 6. Nasturtiums. Here's where it gets surprising. Nasturtiums are completely edible. Flowers, leaves, and seeds. And they also naturally repel aphids and whiteflies from nearby plants. You're growing a food crop and a pest management system at the same time. Most people don't even know you can eat nasturtiums. The variety is Alaska Mix. It has variegated leaves, produces bright orange and yellow flowers all season, and is compact enough to trail over the edge of a small container. The flavor of nasturtium flowers is peppery and slightly sweet, like a cross between watercress and radish. Toss them into salads and the flavor and color are stunning. Fancy restaurants charge a premium for edible flowers. You'll grow them for practically nothing. And seeks. One nasturtium plant in a container produces dozens of flowers and continuously throughout the season. Edible flowers at specialty grocery stores sell for upward of $8 to $12 for a small package. A single plant can produce the equivalent of $30 or more in edible flowers. Seeds are cheap, under $2 for a packet that plants a dozen containers. The payoff to cost ratio here is honestly wild. Number 5. Dwarf kale. Kale has a reputation problem. People think it's a big plant, a field crop, something that needs space. That's actually not true of dwarf varieties, and dwarf kale is one of the most productive cold-weather crops you can grow in a container. The variety is dwarf blue-curled. It stays under 12 inches tall and 12 inches wide, comfortably fits in a single 1-gallon pot, and produces continuously through cool seasons when everything else is done. The unusual growing tip: kale gets sweeter after a frost. If you live somewhere that dips below freezing in fall, leave your kale outside through the first frost deliberately. The cold converts starches in the leaves to sugars. It becomes a completely different vegetable, tender, sweet, and rich. That's something your grocery store will literally never be able to offer you. One container of dwarf blue-curled kale produces roughly 1 to 2 pounds of fresh leaves per month during its growing season. Organic kale runs $2 to $3 per bunch at the store. Over a 4-month cool season, you're looking at $25 to $40 in kale from one pot, and that version you grow yourself post-frost? It tastes like something you'd pay extra for at a restaurant. Hey, quick pause here. If this is helping you see what's actually possible in a small space, hit that like button and subscribe. We drop videos like this every week. I want to know, what's the smallest space you've ever tried to grow something in? Tell me in the comments. A windowsill, a fire escape, a studio apartment. I read every single one. Okay, back to the list, because the top 5 is where things get really interesting. Number 4. Lettuce, cut and come again. Most people plant lettuce once and harvest it once. That's leaving money and meals on the table. Cut-and-come-again lettuce is harvested by cutting leaves from the outside of the plant, leaving the center to keep growing. Done right, one planting gives you continuous salad greens for weeks or even months. The variety to use is Salanova. It's a butterhead type bred specifically for cut-and-come-again harvesting. The leaves are tender, sweet, and loosely formed. One 12-inch container fits 4 to 6 plants. The tip nobody tells you. Harvest in the morning before the heat hits and always leave at least 5 to 6 inner leaves on each plant. Those leaves are the engine. Cut too deep and the plant goes to bolt. A bag of salad mix at the grocery store runs $3 to $5 for 5 ounces. A container of Salanova can produce the equivalent of 6 to 8 bags across a season. That's $18 to $40 in greens from a 12-inch pot. And the texture? Homegrown lettuce has a snap and freshness that pre-bagged grocery salad genuinely can't replicate. Once you've had it, bagged salad tastes like paper. My number 3. Dwarf pepper. Here's what nobody tells you about peppers. The supermarket charges you $1.50 to $3 for a single bell pepper, and you probably don't even like them that much. But compact sweet peppers, grown in a container, those you will eat like candy. Sweet, crisp, and picked when they're perfectly ripe, not shipped green and ripened in a warehouse. The variety is Lunchbox Orange, a miniature sweet pepper that produces relentlessly in a 2-gallon container. Plants reach about 14 inches tall and produce peppers roughly the size of a golf ball. The unusual tip: remove the first 2 or 3 flower buds that form. This directs the plant's early energy into root development, which results in significantly higher yields later. It feels like sacrifice. It's actually strategy. One Lunchbox Orange plant in a 2-gallon container will produce 30 to 50 peppers over a season. Mini sweet peppers at grocery stores sell for $4 to $6 for an 8-ounce bag. That's roughly a dozen small peppers. Your one plant produces 3 to 4 times that. Conservatively, $10 to $15 in peppers per plant, per season. And the flavor? Picked ripe off the vine, they're genuinely sweet. Store peppers picked green and gassed ripe will never taste like that. Number 2. Strawberries. Okay, this is the one people don't believe until they try it. You can grow strawberries on a balcony, in a container, in under 2 square feet, and they taste nothing like what you buy at the store. Nothing. The variety is Albion. It's an ever-bearing day-neutral strawberry. Sois, which means it produces fruit continuously from late spring through fall rather than in one big June crop. One Albion plant in a gallon container or 3 plants in a long window box will produce throughout the season without stopping. The tip: remove all the runners that form during the first month. Runners are the long, vine-like stems the plant sends out to make new plants. Cutting them early forces all energy into fruiting rather than reproduction. Organic strawberries at the grocery store average $3 to $5 per pint. An ever-bearing container plant like Albion produces roughly 1 to 2 pints over the course of a season, sometimes more in a good year. That's $6 to $10 per plant in fruit. Multiply that across even 3 plants in a window box and you're at $20 to $30 in strawberries. But the taste? No grocery berry has ever tasted like a warm strawberry picked a minute ago. It's a completely different food. Number 1. Dwarf bush beans. The number 1 plant on this list is one most people would never think to grow in a container. Bush beans. Not pole beans. Bush beans. They're compact, they're fast, they're heavy producers, and they require 0 support structure. They don't climb. They sit in a pot and make beans. The variety is Provider bush bean. It's been around since the 1960s because it just works. It matures in 50 to 55 days, produces abundantly, and fits comfortably in a container 12 inches wide and at least 8 inches deep. The unusual tip? Succession sow every 3 weeks. Plant one container, then 3 weeks later plant another. Chastity. You'll have continuous harvests instead of one big glut of beans all at once. Most beginners don't think about timing their plantings. This changes everything. A pound of fresh green beans at the grocery store costs $2 to $3. A 12-inch container of Provider bush beans can yield 1.5 to 2 pounds of beans per planting. With 2 or 3 succession sowings across a season, that's 4 to 6 pounds of beans. $8 to $18 in produce from containers that cost you maybe $3 of seeds and soil to plant. And fresh-picked beans have a snap and sweetness that grocery store beans, days old and limp, simply don't have. This is the one that will make you a believer. All right, I promised you this. And here it is. The single tip that applies to every plant on this list, that most container gardeners never think about, that I personally watched double my yields 2 seasons in a row: liquid seaweed fertilizer. It sounds almost too simple. You can find a bottle at any garden center for $8 to $10 or order it online. Dilute it to half strength, follow the label, but then cut that dose in half, and water your containers with it once every 2 weeks starting when your plants put on their first true leaves. Seaweed is packed with trace minerals, natural growth hormones, and compounds that help plants handle stress. In containers, where plants can't reach out for nutrients the way they would in the ground, this matters enormously. The first season I did this consistently, my pepper plants produced almost double the fruit. My basil stayed lush and green 6 weeks longer than it had the year before. My strawberries ran well into October. One bottle, $10, lasts an entire season across a dozen containers. It's the closest thing I've found to a secret weapon in a bottle. So, there it is. 10 edible plants, each under 2 square feet, each producing real food with real savings, and one bonus tip that ties them all together. Whether you've got a fire escape, a windowsill, or a tiny balcony, you now know exactly which plants to put in those spaces and exactly how to get the most out of them. If this video helped you see your small space differently, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got more budget-growing content dropping every single week. One question before you go: which of these 10 are you starting with first? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know. And until next time, keep growing. Or keep saving, and remember, the best garden is the one you've actually got. See you in the next one.